Hello, I'm Rick Conti. This is number 0713, the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there! Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0713. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, Dennis Palumbo, one of my favorite mystery writers, who is also a psychotherapist, talks about how his profession is depicted in film and television.
Therapists are not portrayed as accurately as they could be. And there's a reason for that. Because most of the time, unless they're the lead character, their function, particularly like in crime shows or procedural shows, is to just give a bunch of exposition about the mental state of the bad guy. And so there's a tendency for them to just rattle off in a very kind of facile way a diagnostic category for the bad guy. I always cringe because they're talking about someone they don't know, that they've never interviewed or had a treatment session with.
Tatum Matthews is an actress who plays the title character in the film The Artifice Girl, and she's only 14 years old. How did she land the role?
I actually knew the director, Franklin Rich, since I was 9 years old. I met him at an audition, actually. And so he was like, hey, I have this film that I'm doing. He's like, I'd love for you to be a part of it. And I was like, oh, okay, super cool. And so it was filmed locally, and we worked on it. I was really excited. I think it's super cool to be the lead in this film, and such an incredible and special film as this one. And it was definitely a challenging role at times, but I think challenges are super fun. I was just really excited about it.
Stuart Nulman is in with another edition of Book Banter.
Hi, I'm Stuart Nulman, and Book Banter delves into the hidden history files once again with the Nazi conspiracy, in which Brad Meltzer and Josh Mensch reveals a secret assassination plot that could have affected the outcome of World War II. The historical cloak and dagger begins soon on the Stuff File program.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news, and of course, an idiot of the day. The guest Slater, the person who told you this was show number 0713, was Rick Conti, a retired Montreal firefighter and a lifelong friend. We've been playing Stratomatic baseball in a draft league since we were teenagers, and it's still going strong today. Thank you very much, Rick, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. An 18-year-old girl in India had to undergo emergency surgery after swallowing her cell phone during a fight with her brother over the device. Said an unnamed doctor involved in the surgery, the dispute between siblings led to a turn of events. The brother and sister, who share the use of the cell phone, were reportedly quarreling over the Chinese-made cell when the incensed teen decided to end their spat in a bizarre fashion by ingesting said mobile device. Shortly thereafter, the girl started suffering a massive bellyache, or should I say cellyache. The doctor described how she started experiencing severe abdominal pain and persistent vomiting, prompting concerned family members to rush her to the hospital. Fortunately, after a grueling 2-hour operation, the medical team managed to retrieve the phone from the patient's body. In light of the freak incident, the surgeon is encouraging parents to exercise caution before entrusting their teens with mobile devices. You know, I hate to admit it, but if there was that much animosity between the teenage siblings after the sister swallowed the phone, I'm surprised that in the brother's teenage mind that he didn't use another phone to constantly call the one his sister ingested just to make it ring, or worse yet, vibrate.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number and try your call again.
If you wondered about the future of journalism, then perhaps this is a story that will help alleviate your fears. Student journalists at the Booster Redo Pittsburgh, Kansas High School's newspaper uncovered a scoop that rocked the educational community there. Amy Robertson, who was hired to be the principal on March the 6th, was the subject of a routine interview for the paper, but the students were stymied by Robertson's claim that she had earned degrees from Corlins University. When they dug deeper, they learned that the institution was not accredited by the U.S. Department of Education, had no actual address, and in fact had been identified as a diploma mill. Robertson said her degrees have been authenticated by the U.S. government, and the students' concerns were not based on facts. However, she resigned on April the 4th. Emily Smith, PHS's journalism advisor, said she was very proud of her students. They worked very hard to uncover the truth. Yes, one could say about those students,
the force is strong with you.
Meanwhile, still with teachers, or at least a former teacher, New York City Mayor Eric Adams named former schoolteacher Kathleen Corradi to a new position on April the 12th. Corradi is the rat czar. Well, officially, director of rodent mitigation for the Big Apple. Adams said that it was clear we needed someone solely focused on leading our rat reduction efforts across all 5 boroughs. He went on to say,
"This is almost a job that's made for her. As a child, she was doing petitioning to get rats out of her community. To find your calling, I think is the right time, and New Yorkers are happy that she's here."
Oh, Mayor Adams, you really know how to sweet-talk a gal. Anyway, in 2022, rat sightings in the city increased by 74% over the previous year. I like the list of job requirements in the job posting. They include, and I quote, highly motivated and somewhat bloodthirsty, with a swashbuckling attitude, crafty humor, and a general aura of badassery. Now, honestly, who can fight with a description like that? And I think Corradi, with her qualifications and attitude, is up for the task.
You'll be seeing a lot of me, and a lot less rats. Pizza rat may live in infamy, but rats and the conditions that support their thriving will no longer be tolerated in New York City. There's a new sheriff in town. And with your help, we'll send those rats packing.
Oh, and she won't be messing around. And she has the street cred to back it up.
I'm no stranger to rats. From a child getting signatures on petitions to fight them in my neighborhood, to leading the work at DOE for the rodent mitigation zones there, we saw significant drops in rat populations.
Clearly it goes without saying that she's not fond of rats, but let's say it anyway.
The mayor's made it very clear his stance on rats. He hates rats, I hate rats. All New Yorkers hate rats.
She'll do better than the Pied Piper ever did. Rats? You've been warned. Anyway, let's get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? When you watch movies or television where therapists are portrayed, how true to form is said portrayal? We put that question to Dennis Palumbo. He's an author of one of my favorite fictional characters in the Dr. Daniel Rinaldi series of thrillers. In addition to being a world-class writer, Dennis is also a psychotherapist, and he specializes in his practice of working with writers and other creative types. He was also the consulting producer on the recent Hulu series The Patient, which was about a therapist who's held hostage by a serial killer hoping to be cured of his homicidal tendencies. Dennis joins us via Skype from California. Hi, Dennis.
Hey, Peter. How you doing?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks very much for being on the program with us once again.
My pleasure.
I wanted to talk about the therapy in films and television. I'm assuming, just like most professions, that when you see your profession depicted on film and screen, it's usually nowhere near accurate. I'll give you an example in my profession. People often ask me if you see radio or television people portrayed correctly in television, and my theory has always been WKRP is not a comedy. It's a documentary. That's how accurate it is. But nothing else comes close.
Wow, that's pretty funny.
That's accurate. How do you feel about when you see therapists portrayed on the screen?
Well, with rare exceptions, therapists are not portrayed as accurately as they could be. And there's a reason for that. Because most of the time, unless they're the lead character, their function, particularly like in crime shows or procedural shows, is to just give a bunch of exposition about the mental state of the bad guy. And so there's a tendency for them to just rattle off in a very kind of facile way a diagnostic category for the bad guy. And the viewers kind of know a little bit. So if they go, well, this guy's obviously a sociopath with mixed emotional features, or he's bipolar with mixed psychotic features and obviously had a bad childhood, I always cringe because, number one, they're talking about someone they don't know, that they've never interviewed or, had a treatment session with. Frankly, I have the same feeling when I see therapists and clinicians on news shows like CNN giving diagnoses of some like serial killer that's out there that they've never treated, that they've never met. And so I think I'm glad in one way that at least the profession shows up now, which it didn't used to in crime shows. But with rare exceptions, usually the therapist character is there to provide a kind of one-size-fits-all, very primary colors kind of diagnosis. And that's when then they're good guy. The other thing about clinicians, at least in my experience, is therapists apparently make great bad guys, because it's one of those professions now where they're often portrayed as sexual predators or psycho killers or whatever. I mean, God, on Law and Order, every other killer on that show is a psychiatrist. So I think because it's a scary profession to a lot of people, the idea of someone who is working in the mental health field and can disclose or understand your deepest secrets, it makes it quite scary. I think one of the reasons Hannibal Lecter is such a powerful character is not because he's a cannibal, but because he's an evil psychiatrist. And I think that that's kind of become a staple. So between being portrayed as supervillain or, when we're the good guys, portrayed as someone who can instantly diagnose someone correctly, to me, it's just weak storytelling. It's an easy way for the writer to kind of describe who the bad guy is so we can get back to the trying to catch him.
Well, you, as I mentioned, were the consulting producer on the recent Hulu series, The Patient. How did that come to be in the first place? And once it came to be, how did you make sure, or how did you give your input to make sure that the therapist involved was depicted correctly, or at least as close to correct as one can in a fictional setting?
Well, yeah, it came about because Joe Weisberg and Joel Fields, the people behind The Americans, which was a very successful TV series, called me out of the blue and said, we're doing this show about a therapist who is kidnapped and held hostage by a serial killer who hopes, because he read the therapist's book, that this guy's going to be able to cure him of being a serial killer. So I signed on as a consultant, and my job was to discuss with them and read all the scripts that came in to make how the therapist reacted as accurate as possible, given how bizarre the situation was. And I think, as they stated, the reason they called me, the town here in LA, there's a lot of therapists. They called me because I'm a writer who writes psychological thrillers whose hero is a psychologist. And so their understanding of my role was that I would be both a therapeutic consultant for them, but also understand the needs of narrative so that we wouldn't have the therapist waxing eloquently for 20 minutes. We had to move the story along. So I think it was the combination of my experience as a clinician for 30 years and my background as a mystery writer and TV and film writer in my past that made them feel like I was a good choice to consult on the series. And we really tried to make Dr. Strauss, the psychologist portrayed by Steve Carell, his responses, his interpretations, his therapeutic suggestions as real as possible, given how bizarre the situation was.
Well, I was about to ask, because can they be a real interpretation of what he should say when in reality his life is in danger and there is a threat to his life? There are certain flight or fright situations that one has to take into account, even as a therapist.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that we tried to make clear is that he was scrambling to come up with things because at any moment this guy could kill him. And so he's sort of torn between what he thinks is his clinical duty once he's kind of there, and the part of him that every time the kid was gone, he was trying to figure out a way to get out of there. He was both a prisoner and this serial killer's therapist, and trying to walk that line was very, very difficult. Because he had as the therapist, a certain amount of intellectual curiosity about what made this guy tick. But at the same time, he's also knowing that he's playing for time, that if he doesn't keep coming up with suggestions and interpretations that mollify this extremely unstable person, he could be the next victim. So it was a real tight, high wire act to walk for the character and also for us trying to craft the story.
When you got the script as a consulting producer, when you got a look at the script, was there anything that you saw there that you immediately said, oh, a red pencil's got to go through that?
Oh, there were a lot.
What was the biggest culprit?
Well, there was one. The first one was that I think they had him acting as a therapist too quickly. I think he should have been a frightened hostage victim first. So I kind of pulled back on the therapeutic intervention for the first couple scripts because there were 8 in all. The biggest thing is they needed to understand about how the TerraSoft rule works. And what that rule is if someone says to you, oh, I murdered 3 people, you still have to maintain confidentiality. You can't call the police. You can't say, oh, my patient just murdered 3 people. The TerraSoft law says if they say, I'm going to murder my next door neighbor tonight, then you are legally obligated to call the police. And so the therapist is not obligated to confide in the police or anyone else that the person in his practice is a serial killer. Now, that is in court, that's called privilege. And if a therapist is called to the stand to testify, a judge can revoke that privilege. And then you do have to share the material you talked about in therapy. The only exception to this is, as a clinician, you're court appointed to be a child protector. So if someone comes in and says, oh, I've been abusing my 8-year-old cousin for years, you instantly have to call Child Protective Services. So there's a difference between TerraSoft, where an adult says, I'm going to go kill somebody, or I'm going to drive my car through their window, or any violent act like that. You have to call the police and warn them. But if it's anything they have done in the past, you try to persuade them to turn themselves into the police. But unless it's court ordered, you have to maintain that confidentiality. These are things that these guys didn't know. And one of the things that made me laugh, they said, well, if our therapist gets away, you mean he can't tell the cops anything? I said, of course he can tell them, because he was also a kidnapping victim. As a kidnapping victim, his name is his assailant. You know, he wasn't just the guy's therapist. He was a therapist under duress. And so if he did get away, he would call the cops because this guy's an active serial killer. He intended to keep killing.
Well, congratulations on being a consulting producer, and that brings me to your famous character, Dr. Daniel Rinaldi. How many novels so far? Is it 6, I believe?
That's right. There are 6 novels in the series.
So when do you get to be the producer of a televised version of Dr. Daniel Rinaldi?
Well, as my mother used to say, your mouth to God's ears. We are certainly going to make the rounds and try to sell that puppy. But I'll tell you what, if it gets picked up as a TV series, you'll be the first to know.
Looking forward to it. Dennis, thank you very much for taking the time once again to be on the program with us. It's always fascinating to talk about your work, and in this case, both sides of your work, and the fact that you can blend together not only your past career as a screenwriter, but also your current career as a therapist. It's amazing how you can blend those two together.
I feel very fortunate that I get to do that. I really do. I think mostly it's a function of just how darn old I am. You know, you have room for a lot of careers when you're my age.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being on the program with us once again, Dennis.
Thank you, Peter. It's my pleasure.
Dennis Palumbo, a psychotherapist who is also a screenwriter and novelist. His thriller series contains 6 Dr. Daniel Rinaldi novels, with the latest one called Panic Attack. He was also the co-writer of one of my favorite films, My Favorite Year, starring Peter O'Toole. Plus, he was a writer back in the day on the sitcom Welcome Back, Kotter. And by the way, if you think I came up with the idea of discussing the depiction of therapists in film all by myself, that answer would be no. It just so happens that Dennis himself wrote a short essay for Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine that was all about this topic. It was entitled, Your Shrinks Might Need to Be Shrunk. You can go to my website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0713, and you'll find the links to Dennis's site, plus links to the essay I just mentioned, and also links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order all of his great thrillers, like the latest one, Panic Attack. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like, but the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/thestuffileprogram. You're experiencing the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. Sit back, relax, let it rattle around between your ears, tickling your cerebellum, and enjoy.
And still to come on the program, we'll meet the star of the movie The Artifice Girl, plus Stuart Nulman is along with another edition of Book Banter. And we also have an idiot of the day coming your way, and lots more in Stuff File news right here, right now. Police in Boardman, Ohio are still on the lookout for a robber who broke into a Bed Bath & Beyond store early on April the 8th. Surveillance cameras captured a stocky male throwing a rock through a window at the store, then heading to a stockroom in the back where he filled 4 shopping carts with 33 Dyson vacuum cleaners. The vacuums were valued at between $500 and $750 each, for a total loss of $17,000. Because there are no surveillance cameras outside the store, authorities didn't get a picture of the getaway vehicle. Wow. No clues on a guy who stole 33 Dyson vacuum cleaners. Well, that sucks. And they're worth $17,000? He's really cleaned up. A feud among neighbors in China's Hunan province that has been brewing since April of 2022 recently came to a deadly head on April the 10th. The original feud started when Mr. Zhu cut down Mr. Xiong's trees without his permission. Mr. Zhu was further inflamed when Mr. Xiong's wife towed away the cut trees, so he sneaked into Mr. Xiong's property during the night and shone a flashlight at Mr. Xiong's chickens, causing 500 birds to rush into a corner and trample one another to death. To add insult to injury, Mr. Zhu returned on a different night and employed the same tactic, causing another 640 chickens to die. A court ruled on April the 4th that Mr. Zhu had intentionally caused Mr. Xiong to suffer property loss to the tune of about $2,000. He was sentenced to 6 months in prison and 1 year of probation. We still don't know why Mr. Zhu cut down the trees in the first place, or why he was upset that the wife of the owner of said destroyed trees had them carted away. These are mysteries that will probably go unanswered, and it proves the point of, no matter where you live, be it in China or anywhere else, good fences make good neighbors. Also, who among you knew that you could scare 1,100 chickens into running to their death with just a flashlight? As you drive along the East Link Toll Road in Melbourne, Australia, you might be tempted to spend the night at the Hotel East Link, but it's literally impossible to get a reservation there because it's not really a hotel. It's a sculpture that was unveiled in 2007 by artist Callum Morton. At only 20 meters tall, the hotel isn't exactly a high-rise, and it sits in the middle of an empty field. But it fools passers-by with lights that come on at night in the rooms, and I'm doing air quotes here, enough that people try to call for reservations. Said Morton, putting something in a space that is slightly beguiling or is a little bit strange changes the way people think about art or practice. Meanwhile, still with art, Wilma Flintstone, eat your heart out. French luxury brand Coperni has revealed a fall 2023 limited edition handbag that'll put buyers back $43,000. This is clearly for someone who has more dollars than cents. The mini meteorite swipe bag is made of a meteorite that fell to Earth 55,000 years ago. It weighs about 4.5 pounds empty, is too small to hold much, is non-refundable, and will take about 6 weeks to arrive. So yeah, maybe yabba dabba don't. I mean, you'd have to be rich and stoned to buy it. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, 40-year-old Christopher Phelps of Yucaipa, California, was arrested and charged with assault with a deadly weapon and causing a vehicle collision for the purpose of presenting a false insurance claim after allegedly causing the crash. A month later, Phelps was arrested and charged with more counts of both charges, plus child endangerment. This time his wife, Kimberly Phelps, was also charged. The latter arrests happened after investigators collected evidence of 23 collisions linked to 17 insurance claims from the YouTube channel where the couple allegedly posted 162 dashcam videos, many of which showed their child in the car with them and allegedly causing or almost causing more crashes. Each of the adult Phelpses are being held on $500,000 bail. You know what kind of idiocy cancels each other out? It's the kind where you want to commit insurance fraud, but you also want to have social media notoriety. Dumb, 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 dumb.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
And let's get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Tatum Matthews has already had a very interesting acting career. She stars as Erin Walton in the CW's reboot of The Waltons in television specials. And she is the title character in the sci-fi indie film The Artifice Girl, which is about to have its theatrical and streaming release on April 27th. The film actually had its world premiere at the 26th Annual Fantasia International Film Festival right here in Montreal last July. In addition to being an actress, Tatum is a singer and dancer, and she's only 14 years old. Tatum joins us via Zoom from Jacksonville, Florida. Hi, Tatum.
Hi.
Nice to have a chance to talk with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So how did you get this particular role in your new film, The Artifice Girl? How did that come to you?
Yes, I actually knew the director, Franklin Rich, since I was 9 years old. And I met him at an audition, actually. And so he was like, hey, I have this film that I'm doing. He's like, I'd love for you to be a part of it. And I was like, oh, okay, super cool. And so it was filmed locally, and we worked on it. And then we filmed it here, and it was a pretty easy process.
But you are actually the title character, the lead. Was that daunting for you, or is it just, water off a duck's back? It's something you can do very easily.
No, I was really excited. I think it's super cool to be the lead in this film, and such an incredible and special film as this one. And it was definitely a challenging role at times, but I think challenges are super fun. So I was just really excited about it.
As I mentioned, in addition to being an actress, you're also a singer and a dancer. Has this been something you've always wanted to do since you were a little girl?
Yeah, actually, I started in dance, and I had a musical theater class at my dance studio. And I think my parents could just instantly tell that was what I wanted to do. And I've been doing it ever since. And it's so much fun. I love theater. I love film. I just love everything about the business.
Well, is there any aspect of the business that you like more than others? Would you consider yourself an actress first, a dancer first, or a singer first, or is it all just mixed together?
Oh, that's so hard. I mean, people ask me sometimes which one I'd pick, and I just cannot. I love each of them equally. But I've been doing dancing the longest, and I recently got into film. But I really don't know which one I'd pick best. I really like them all.
Okay, so tell us about the film, The Artifice Girl. Tell us about the character and what the story is.
Yeah, so I play Cherry, and it's about a programmer who develops this AI girl named Cherry, and she helps to catch online predators. And then special agents find out about her and are really shocked to learn how much she can evolve beyond her original purpose.
Would you consider it, I already said it's a sci-fi film. Would you consider it a bit of a horror film?
I think maybe at times, but it really does lean more on that techie, sci-fi, almost thriller, which I think is just a really cool genre that I've really enjoyed just getting into recently.
Okay, so your life is just starting as opposed to us old fogies. So I'm just wondering how you feel generally about AI, which is something that scares older people.
Yeah, well, it's funny because everyone is really talking about AI right now. So we were like, wow, what a perfect time for this movie to come out. It's just felt really perfect. I'm definitely not an expert on AI, but I've heard about ChatGPT and Dolly, and I think they're really helpful and cool and creative, and it's crazy that an AI is able to create stuff like that.
As you say, it's a perfect time for this film to come out. I'm sure when you started this movie, it hadn't exploded, the whole idea of AI. It just seems to be, it's exploding right now at the time that the film is coming out. Do you think that will help with the buzz of this movie? Are you hoping that will happen?
Yeah, we're definitely hoping so. I mean, we love talking about it, and I just think that it's really kind of cool, the timing that this has worked out. And AI is such a cool subject to talk about, and it's great that everyone is talking about it right now for us. We're really excited.
As an actor, you have to work your best at emoting. But when you play an AI character, do you have to kind of mute that? How did you go about playing the role?
Yeah, when I found out I got the role, I was like, oh, okay, cool. She's an AI. That's really cool because it's something I've never done before. But I wanted to still approach her as just a normal girl that I was playing. Because I think that yes, AIs have like something a little bit off, but they need that just general, almost human, like, personality to them. So I really did approach it as just a real normal girl, even though she isn't. Um, and I worked with Alexa, and I worked on a lot of just small details to make it seem like, yeah, she seems like really real and it's believable, but there might be something a little bit off.
I mentioned earlier that you play Aaron Walton in the CW's reboot of the Waltons in television movies, but that is a large ensemble cast. Here in this movie, you are the title character. You lead the film. Is that something that's new to you? Have you done that before with other projects?
Leading roles are a little bit newer to me. Aaron was such a great role, and I adore and love that cast. So this one was really cool because it's just really four of us as the main cast of this film, and I think that's really cool. And we had such great trust and bond with each other because we had worked with each other in the past before. But yeah, this lead role kind of came as a shock to me, and I was really excited, and where it's come now is kind of just crazy.
Are you hoping that this is the role that literally puts you over the top, that makes you a household name and can lead to other things for you?
I definitely hope it will lead to other things. I mean, it's really cool that it's made this far and with South by Southwest and Fantasia and all the amazing festivals that we've been able to go to. So yeah, I'm hoping so.
And what are your goals in your acting career? As I said, it's music, it's dance, it's acting. In your ideal mind, when you envision something that you really, really want, what is it?
I really just want to be diverse in everything that I do. I love playing instruments, I love singing, I love dancing, and I especially just love acting. And I think it's just really cool that you're able to do so many things and be in so many facets. And I just can't really pick. I think that I'll continue just doing everything that I'm doing and just see where it takes me.
One of the things, considering the storyline, is it talks about artificial intelligence, AI characters, and we're starting to see in radio and sometimes in film the idea of AI replacing voice people or actors. Are you worried about this?
I definitely think that it's kind of almost a scary thought, but it's really cool at the same time that they're able to literally do what we do. Like, it's kind of just amazing. I saw at an art competition, actually, where an AI drew with DALL-E, drew an image, and it won over, like, some real artists. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And, like, maybe eventually they'll be actors, too, and do the same thing that we do right now. And so it's kind of just crazy to think about, but it is kind of cool that they're able to do this and just be almost so spot on as us.
I know you're looking forward to the upcoming release, both streaming and theatrically, of this movie, but are you aware of anything that you're going to be doing after this? What's your next project?
I'm just doing a lot of auditioning right now, and it's a little bit of a slow period right now, but I'm really excited for what the future might hold and maybe what this film will bring. And it's just basically living in the now right now, and it's super fun. This film I'm really excited for it to come out.
Do you like auditioning?
Yeah, actually, it does take up like a good amount of your time, but self-tape has made it so much easier. And so I've been doing it at home, and I have an accommodated schedule at school, which really helps as well. So I'm able to do the auditions. I love them. My mom is super great in helping with them, being my reader, and it's just really fun. And I think that, yeah, it's just fun doing self-tapes, and from the comfort of your own home is even nicer.
Well, congratulations on the film. Again, it's called The Artifice Girl, and it's coming out on the 27th of April. Tatum, I thank you very much for taking the time to be on the program with us. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Tatum Matthews, star of the sci-fi indie film The Artifice Girl, Again, it's having its theatrical and streaming release on April 27th. You can go to my website at thestuffile.com to the page for this show, which is show number 0713, and you'll find links to Tatum's site. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Portions of the Stuff File program are available to you via Audia.io. At Audia, you'll find hundreds and hundreds of Stuff File program interviews going all the way back to 2009. That's Audia, AUDEA.io. There's more Stuff File program coming your way right after this break.
Hi, I'm Peter Anthony Holder, and I'm the host of a new weekly podcast called Business Beyond Bizarre. What exactly is Business Beyond Bizarre?
A podcast of the slightly unusual.
Yeah, like she said. To be more specific, it's a show that features folks who have slightly quirky hobbies or businesses. It's a chance to meet some people who think outside the box and, metaphorically speaking, are off the beaten path. You'll meet folks like the creators of the fart spray called Liquid Ass, the woman who invented goat yoga, father and son undertakers who have perfected how to save your tattoos after you die, the founder of the religion Jediism, plus why you should be drinking gin made from elephant dung.
Business Beyond Bizarre.
Oh, there's a lot more where these came from. Give us a listen. Who knows? This show might just spark you to find your own slightly bizarre path.
Latitude 47 degrees 14 minutes north. Longitude 84 degrees 39 minutes west. Location Montreal, Canada. This is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. It's time to crack a spine. The Stuff File presents Book Banter with Stuart Nulman. Once again, here's Peter Anthony Holder.
And as the announcer just said, perhaps we have Stuart Nulman. Or maybe it's just all a conspiracy.
Hi, Peter. It's actually me. It's no, how can I say, no substitute.
Is it really you,
Don't
though?
accept. Well, it's I'm in the Twilight Zone.
Or a recent facsimile?
Yes, an acceptable recent facsimile. Because on this edition of Book Banter, Peter, we're going to talk about a conspiracy. Not those conspiracies that you've heard a lot about lately, but the Nazi conspiracy. So let me set the stage for you. The time is November 1943. The place, Tehran, Iran. So in the capital city of this country in the Persian Gulf region, a conference will take place between the three leaders of the Allied forces. That's Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin. This first face-to-face meeting between the big three has a great deal of importance behind it, because what will be discussed between these powerful leaders will determine the next plan of action to finally defeat Nazi Germany and the Axis powers during World War II. Now, the one subject that will dominate the discussion at the conference is the possibility of launching an invasion that would open up a second front against Nazi Germany in Western Europe. This will subsequently provide the genesis of Operation Overlord, or as was better known as D-Day. So, the planning of this conference in Tehran was intense, especially the details concerning security. However, there is a serious wrinkle that could directly affect the staging of the conference, and even worse, the lives of Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin. It seems that Mike Riley, who is in charge of the Secret Service detail at the White House, discreetly finds out from a member of the Soviet delegation that one of their spies discovered that a small group of Nazi intelligence agents parachuted into Tehran a few days before with one dangerous assignment: to assassinate the three Allied leaders, which can possibly turn the tide of the war in favor of the Axis powers. Now, this scenario is not a spy novel from the pen of Ian Fleming or Len Dayton, but the third volume of the conspiracy series of hidden history books written by the team of Brad Meltzer and Josh Mensch, called The Nazi Conspiracy. Now, after reading the book, the impression that you'll get, and what I got, was that although this is a work of nonfiction, it reads like a combination of a Frederick Forsyth novel like The Day of the Jackal or The Odessa File, and a John Frankenheimer political thriller movie like The Manchurian Candidate or 7 Days in May. Those elements keep the reader captivated, but this example of hidden history offers quite a what might have been if those Nazi agents were successful with their secret mission in Tehran. So what I liked is like the two authors, Meltzer and Mensch, they shift the focus back and forth throughout the book that leads to the fateful occasion when both the Nazi and Allied sides converge in Tehran, not to mention the characters who make up this dramatis personae. Not only just Hitler, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin, but also a guy named Franz Mayer, the Nazi spy who plays a role in the plot but is practically forgotten by his superiors in Berlin while he's posted in Iran. And also Otto Skorzeny, he's the Abwehr agent. That was the Nazi intelligence service agent who is given the responsibility of carrying out the plot after he becomes a celebrity in Nazi Germany when he led a daring rescue mission of Italian dictator Benito Mussolini after his arrest by opposing Italian forces. Now, on the other side, things are kind of chaotic with the big three in the months leading to the conference in Tehran, and which are practically maddening and could threaten the show of strength and unity that's needed to launch the effort to strike the final blow against the Nazis. Like Roosevelt wanted to meet with Stalin by himself without giving Churchill any prior knowledge. Then there's Roosevelt and Churchill pussyfooting around with Stalin regarding the choosing of the site of the conference and the issues to be discussed in order to placate the Soviet leader and not upset him in any way that can lead to weakening disunity amongst the three. And then there's the maneuvering between Roosevelt and Stalin to convince Churchill to go along with the Second Front invasion plan of northern France, which Churchill has opposed from the start.
It's sort of like a very ugly, serious square dance.
Yeah, and no way of do-si-doing through this one, Peter.
Yeah,
no way. Yeah, and that's all, and that's even before Mike Raleigh finds out about this this assassination plot that the guy from the Soviet delegation told him. But you know what? It takes a certain skill to take a lot of historical research from both sides of the story and turn it into a cohesive, riveting narrative, and the duel succeeds with the Nazi conspiracy. And although it does read like a good spy thriller novel, the book still gives the reader a chilling feeling about the historical ramifications that might have been had this assassination plot was successfully carried out, and what it could have meant for the rest of the free world had the Second World War ended differently and not for the better.
And it's one of the only stories that, let's be honest, during the course of the Second World War and leading up to the Second World War, that if any minor detail, like falling dominoes, had changed along the way, things could have been radically different at several times during the course of that war.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of what might have been, what could have been. It makes you glad that things ended out the way they did. It's just sometimes too scary to think of, what happens if a certain plot or a certain spy got away with something or got, some certain secrets that could have been damaging to the Allied war effort. It sometimes puts a chill down your spine, put it that way.
And what if Glenn Miller's plane didn't go missing?
Then he would have been touring with Benny Goodman, I guess.
I guess. So the book again is?
It's called The Nazi Conspiracy by Brad Meltzer and Josh Mensch. It's published by Flatiron Books, and it's $24.99.
And what other books in this genre do you recommend, sir?
Well, there's another book about the Tehran conference by Brett Baer called 3 Days at the Brink, which focuses more on the planning of the Tehran conference and the historical implications it had, the importance of what those 3 days in Tehran really had towards the war effort. And also, speaking of the main topic of conversation, the D-Day invasion, well, if you want to read more about D-Day, and we have a good share of books, but the one I always recommend, the first one I ever read about D-Day was Cornelius Ryan's The Longest Day, which is an excellent story. I mean, it doesn't only tell about the strategies, but also the people who, the soldiers who fought this invasion on both sides. And also it was made to quite a movie that in 1962, a great all-star cast and produced by Darryl F. Zanuck.
By the way, never mind the idea that anything changing along the way would fall like dominoes and affect the way the war was. One of the other things, the weather.
Yeah, that's right.
If the weather had been different, things could have been totally different.
That's right. I mean, they had that nice little window, on the night of June 5th into the morning of June 6th, and that was the only time they could have done that invasion. If not, all those rainstorms would have washed out the whole operation.
Yeah. Anyway, this week's book again is?
It's called The Nazi Conspiracy by Brad Meltzer and Josh Mensch. It's published by Flatiron Books, and it's $24.99.
And while I know that you are indeed the real Stuart Nulman, no conspiracy here, I will just state, accept no substitutes. So where can the real Stuart Nulman be found?
Well, you won't find me on Juno Beach. Maybe one day when I plan to visit. But in the pages of the Montreal Times, you can just go to www.mtltimes.ca, and there I am. No secrets, no conspiracies, no shadows.
Well, I was so tempted to say something, but I'll stop.
I can imagine what you have up your devious sleeve.
I'll just say thank you very much, Stuart, for being on the show.
You're welcome, Peter.
Stuart Nulman with another edition of Book Banter here on the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
The Stuff File.
And we're just about a racetrack for this edition of the Stuff File program. We have a few more Stuff File news stories to share with you. Plus, of course, we do indeed have an idiot of the day. And the bells signify that it's time for the Darwin File.
I am the Grim Reaper. I am death.
Two teens were reenacting a robbery scene with real guns when one of the teens was shot and killed inside a Detroit home. The teens were playing with real guns at the home when one of the teens tripped, said DPD Assistant Chief Charles Fitzgerald. One of the 15-year-olds tripped with the rifle, pulling the trigger, and shot his friend in the chest, and the friend died. No parents were home when this happened, and police are still trying to figure out where the firearm came from. They are now working with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to find the weapons' owners. Said Fitzgerald, they didn't wander into a gun store to buy them. They got them from somewhere, got them from wherever, got them off the streets, got them from their parents. Yes. Once again, this proves that the tree of life is often self-pruning.
I have come for you. I am death.
Here's an extremely dumb thing to do. Eric Tadeo Ramirez was overheard at a late-night party in Laredo, Texas, bragging on the telephone that he had stolen $50,000 from a Mexican drug cartel. He told the unidentified woman on the phone that he was not afraid of the cartel since he was safely in the United States. You see where this is going, don't you? Less than 2 hours later, a pickup truck arrived at the party, gunmen jumped out and dragged Ramirez off. Minutes later, security cameras near the border recorded a bloodied Ramirez trying to escape the pickup truck. He was pulled back inside, though a bloody shirt and a pair of pants were left on the road. The truck then blew through the border crossing at the Juarez-Lincoln International Bridge, successfully entering Mexico. The pickup's driver has been arrested, but Ramirez hasn't been heard from since. Well, I'm sure wherever he is, Ramirez has been comforted by the fact that the driver was arrested. However, I somehow guess that chances are he's never going to enjoy that $50,000 he stole. There's a moral to this story. Don't brag on the phone at a party. Meanwhile, always check your pockets before doing a load of laundry or putting wet clothes in the dryer. If not, you just might blow up the machine, as a Spanish man found out. The unnamed man nearly died when the machine he had just filled up and turned on at a laundromat caught fire and exploded seconds after he walked out the door. Footage emerged online of the incident, which happened in March in A Coruña, located in northern Spain. The dryer suddenly stopped and its door swung open before it burst into flames. The laundromat's window blew out and a sign fell, but nobody was hurt. Reports said the man had left a lighter in the pocket of a pair of pants, and that caused the blast. Yet another example of the dangers of smoking. And now, boys and girls, it's that moment you've all been waiting for. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. The Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
Seems like it would go without saying, but you might want to assemble an item you just stole away from the store's parking lot. On April the 3rd in Flagler County, Florida, Patrick Vandermaiden Miller allegedly walked out of a Target store with an electric scooter he had not paid for. Deputies were called to the scene where they found Vandermaiden Miller near a cart rack putting together the scooter. He also had drug paraphernalia in his pockets. He was charged with possession of drug paraphernalia and petty theft. By the way, you can see a picture taken by police body cam of this guy in all his glory on the Stuff File program Twitter and Facebook pages. Now, why, oh why, would you steal something from a store and boldly try to assemble it in said store's parking lot? One reason, and one reason only. You're an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0713. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestufffile.com, and once again, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0713. Email me at peter@thestufffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter as PA Holder. And don't forget to check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including kdxradio.com, truetalkradio.com, over the air on World FM in New Zealand, MediaCore in Singapore, WLSLLP-FM in Dade City, Florida, KZZHLP-FM in Eureka, California, CKUW-FM in Winnipeg, CFMU in Hamilton, CKLU in Sudbury, Local 107.3 FM in St. John, CHSR in Fredericton, and also streaming on just about any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. While it may be an enjoyable, pleasant experience, some side effects may occur. Listening to Peter may cause bloating, drowsiness, Tourette's, web feet, or an oily discharge.